We should form a club, a brotherhood.
We change the world through the power of art.
Music, poetry.
And what about Tolkien?
I want to write something.
In recent years, the cultural discourse has been tainted by the baffling notion that art should not be political. This is an incredibly dumb take for numerous reasons, but like many things in life, like believing in Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, or watching PewDiePie, these are things that audiences tend to just naturally grow out of as they mature. However, the cultivation of internet echo chambers which will reinforce whatever the heck you want them to, may have stunted the intellectual growth of people who think having a woman lead in a comic book movie is too political, but is absolutely okay with the post 9/11 needs of the many political allegory because social justice boogeymen? Which is why I'm really grateful to movies like Goodbye Christopher Robin, Professor Marston and the Wonder Women, and now Tolkien, for giving audiences a mainstream look at the creators or creatives who made some of our most enduring pop culture institutions, and reminding audiences that they are indeed people, and ideas like Winnie the Pooh, Mary Poppins, Bilbo Baggins and Superman and more don't just come from nowhere, but they're influenced by the social political era in which they were born. And while Tolkien isn't exactly a roaring success in depicting the life of Middle-earth creator John Ronald Reuel Tolkien leading up to the writing of his first children's book The Hobbit in 1937, it's an earnest and often affecting biopic that really did leave an impact on me. The story follows Tolkien, played primarily by Nicholas Hoult, through his childhood in foster care and time studying language in school, interspersed with his harrowing time in the trenches in World War I, trying to find his friends, with whom he formed a creative bohemian tea club with before the war, where they would hang out, write and create. The film also gives great attention to Tolkien's relationship with his wife Edith, played by Lily Collins, hello again, and his experiences with love, friendship, loss and war that ultimately influenced one of the most prestigious pieces of literary fiction ever written. Structurally, the film is serviceable, the love story is decent, and the references to Tolkien's work aren't nearly as heavy-handed as the trailers would suggest.
This is more than just a friendship. It's an alliance. An invincible alliance.
A fellowship.
He said it!
We also get great supporting actors like Cole Meany and Derek Jacobi, who don't get that much to do, but it's nice to see them anyway. No, Tolkien is one of those movies where the whole adds up far more than the sum of its parts, mainly because it's a triumph of theme. For most of its runtime, Tolkien is a decent but unassuming biopic, and every so often it will just throw you through a loop with a really powerful line or an emotionally wrenching scene, and that's because this film has a fire in its heart regarding war and loss, which, despite the Tolkien estate denouncing the film before they even saw it, the man himself might have actually appreciated. Because the film finds its heart in the relationship Tolkien develops in school with Jeffrey Smith, Robert Gilson and Christopher Wiseman, and then the whole quartet go to war, but minor spoilers here, not all of them come back, and even those who do are never the same as when they left.
You'll have a tale or two to tell when you come back.
Can you promise that I will come back?
No. And if you do, you will not be the same.
Then, 5 minutes before the credits roll, Tolkien plays its hand and lays out such a profound anti-war scene that knocked me emotionally on my ass, positing that one of the real tragedies of war is the creative voices that are silenced, or the people whose stories will never be told for such a needless cause. The scene also pops as well as it does, because the World War I interludes are the most brutal that I have seen in a 12A movie since Warhorse, and that Nicholas Hoult is also really good in this role. Also, side note, Hoult has kind of flown under the radar for the past decade, but we really should take stock and remember just how good he is at his job. I will fully admit that I am easygoing with this type of material. I love biopics about creators or creatives, but after being suitably reminded just how boring and pedestrian these types of films can be after Bohemian Rhapsody, it's nice to see a film like Tolkien actually show up with something to say, if only briefly. Like I said, the rest of the film is pretty pedestrian, and despite the subject matter, the journey it takes is entirely expected. It's also frequently awkward because despite Fox Searchlight having the live rights to depict Tolkien on screen, the actual film rights to his works belong to Warner Brothers, so the fantasy sequences shown off in the trailers are just the most generic swords and shields works imaginable, which, if you weren't familiar with Tolkien's work before seeing this film, you'd wonder what on earth the big deal was. Still, I had a good time with Tolkien, and despite its rather ho-hum critical reception, I personally did find it frequently endearing, and like I said, some scenes really emotionally got to me. And despite my better judgment, I am indeed giving Tolkien 3.5 stars out of 5.
It's about journeys. journeys we take to prove ourselves.
What it means to love.
And to be loved.
War! England's at war!
Trilbee, Trilbee, Trilbee.